Welcome to this week's edition of Mountain Outhouse News. I'm your host, Jam Jam. This is the crazy to happen in running this week. This week's stories include running is canceled, creative quarantined options, and a treadmill 100-mile world record attempt coming soon. Greetings, Outhouse Nation. Before we get to this week's stories, I just want to give you all a sincere thank you for tuning in to this little news show for the past 3+ years. While at times it can be a struggle for me to get this show written, filmed, and produced each week, I'm really happy that we've kept it alive. It really feels like a duty at this point to get the news out to all of you, and I have a feeling with the current state of affairs in the world, it will be more important than ever. My aim is to serve as a source for all the running stories you care about, and hopefully to provide a bit of hope and entertainment. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to serving you each and every week. As a note of housekeeping, we have long been supported by our Patreon contributors, as you all know. This directly helps pay for our video editor, who without the assistance of, there is no way I could feasibly produce this show. We're excited to announce that our long-standing Mountain Outpost Patreon has now been expanded and rebranded to encompass all of my video content and YouTube channels. We've changed the name of our Patreon to Steep Life Media, and it will now support not only this news show and Mountain Outpost, but also the Run Steep Get High YouTube channel, the Aravaipa Running YouTube channel, and all of my online video creation content. We are excited about the changes, and we will have weekly bonus content just for Patreon members. You can check out all of our tier levels and give what you can. I know not everyone is able to give now, but you can still support all of our content online by subscribing and watching. Thank you. We begin this week with everything is canceled. Really not news to anyone who is living through this moment in time, but I think we can point to Rudy Gobert as the catalyst for the incredible speed at which all of sports, including running events, shut down. Okay, I mean, not exactly. But after he tested positive, and mind you, after touching every microphone at a press conference, it became present and clear that there was a major issue. The NBA shut down. Then spring training was next, major marathons postponed or canceled, and it left a lot of us wondering what would happen to trail and ultras. Surely the safest place right now is out on a trail, right? Well, you'd think so, but that doesn't account for aid stations, starting corrals, post-race beer gardens, and not to mention all the hugs and high fives. These are certainly unprecedented times for all of us living through this, with recommendations from the CDC on mass gatherings being restricted to under 50, and then tightened to under 10, we all now are doing what we can to slow the spread. I myself had to postpone 8 weeks worth of events, and many other small businesses are feeling the same hurt currently. With all of these races off the calendar, it is quite eerie. We live in sort of a limbo land. There's nothing to train for. That is, if you can even get outdoors and run at all. Many countries around the world are in quarantine lockdown. Strange times, for sure. Please let me know in the comments this week how you are currently being affected and what level the restrictions are. If you're running and training, what does that look like and where are you in the world? Here in Arizona, we currently still have access to the trails and parks, but that might change by next week's show. We will continue to provide the latest updates on the show each week to keep you informed and hopeful for the future. With that, let's get into a few more specifics of races either canceled or postponed. The cancellations are far-reaching, and even the mighty Barkley Marathons wasn't able to escape. I guess you could say the Barkley wins again, but it really feels like we've all just lost. The Barkley was canceled just a few days ago by Laz. Not only was the field already decimated by international travel bans, but the mass gathering restrictions continued the pressure felt by Laz and the race organizers. Ultimately, Frozen Head State Park pulled the plug on all events, sealing the fate of the 2020 Barkley Marathons. Next up, the Ultra Trail World Tour, which is the largest global circuit for premier ultra events, has a slew of race postponements and cancellations. First affected was Geelagong by UTMB, which is now postponed from March till December. The Patagonia Run, which was to be held in April, will now fall in November, while 100 Miles of Istria will move to September, and Penigolosa Trails will be in October. Yeah, the fall race lineup is getting packed quick. As for both Ultra Trail Mount Fuji and Madeira Island Ultra Trail, both will be canceled for 2020, and Ultra Trail Australia is postponed with no alternate date set as of the recording of this show. Yes, my very own company, Aravaipa Running, is also being massively affected right now. We've had to postpone 8 weeks worth of events to the fall. However, we just launched our own virtual race called Aravaipa Strong, which is taking entries until April 3rd with a race date window between April 17th and 26th. Check it out if you're looking for some extra motivation and to come together as a global running community. We don't know of too many runners yet affected by the 2020 virus, but we are sad to report that World Mountain Running Association honorary member Ramon Doble of Italy passed away recently. It is unclear if this was due to the recent virus or something else. We will likely see a surge in record attempts for FKTs or fastest known times, and also for treadmill records as people are practicing social distancing measures and also quarantined at home for the foreseeable future. As you'll see, you really can't stop runners. They are a creative bunch and will persist. That should give us all some hope. Before we get into some direct FKT and treadmill news, let's look at some of the restrictions going into place around the world right now. In France, you are banned from running more than 2 kilometers from home. I guess that means there will be a lot of short loops in some runners' future. For those who think they can circumvent the new measures, here's a warning. There are already reports of French police using Strava to catch and find cyclists for training outdoors beyond the limits. That's intense. For those looking for options a bit closer to home, or actually in your home under quarantine, there are some resorting to using soap or vegetable oil to create your own treadmill in your bathtub or kitchen. Not sure I'd recommend this, but it sure makes for a funny video. If you're enjoying this week's show, please drop a like on the video below and comment your favorite story of the week and tell me why. Some runners quarantined are still keeping active. We discussed in previous shows where runners in China were running long distances inside their apartments. Well, Elisha Nochimovitz, who happens to be on the Brooks Run Happy team, ran a marathon on his 7-foot by 7-foot balcony, proving that no space is too small to get your marathon in. He called it Marathon of My Balcony. I think these watch companies really need a quarantine mode, which locks in that GPS signal a bit tighter. What do you think? Ultra runner Amy Sproston, who has been living abroad for quite some time and is currently residing in Jordan, reported on Twitter that if you are caught leaving your home there, you can face up to 1 year in prison. Thankfully, she says she has a roof and ran 3.1 miles in 44 minutes time in what looks like a tiny, tiny area. Others are eyeing treadmill records. Camille Herron, whose Run 100 track race on Nike's home track in Oregon was canceled, tweeted out the Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest female 100-mile time on a treadmill was run by Edith Bursis in 14 hours, 15 minutes, and 8 seconds in Budapest, Hungary back in 2004. Seems like a pretty doable record for Camille, and I, for one, hope she takes it on in the coming weeks. Taking that a step further, or maybe a step in a different direction, is Anthony Famigaletti, who has created the Treadmill World Championships that will have runners race and submit times at various track distances later this spring. Anthony, of course, is the guy who recently has been banging out sub-4-minute miles on the treadmill. This week's bonus story found in our Glasses Off post show, I will talk about my quarantined running game plan should I be confined to my home. Gain access by joining Steep Life Media on Patreon. Now for some FKTs. Thankfully, for the fastest known time folks, business is about to boom, so to speak. The site that tracks these records has a couple FKTs of the week to share. Let's get into it. First is Allison Baca of Tucson, who smashed out a new best time on Mount Wrightson, an iconic peak south of where she resides. The Aravaipa Racing Team member ran the 10-mile round-trip route in 2 hours 23 minutes, knocking 20 minutes off the best known time. Ben Feinson, who was gearing up for the now canceled Georgia Death Race, turned his fitness towards an FKT attempt on the Georgia Loop. Now this is my first time hearing of this one, but it looks pretty rad. It is a 57-mile loop in the Chattahoochee National Forest on portions of the AT, Duncan Ridge Trail, and Benton Mackay Trail. Pretty cool. Ben knocked it out in 11 hours, 19 minutes, 28 seconds, lowering the time set by Richard Schick in 1993 by 1 hour, 25 minutes. Before we close out this week's show, we have a message from our Beast Coast correspondent, Ages a Whizzle, on race cancellations. Roll it.
Hey, Outhouse Nation, it's Ages a Whizzle checking in from the Beast Coast. Hey, in these times, these trying times of the coronavirus, I know many of us are struggling with anxiety and frustration and anger, and especially those of us who've had our races canceled, as it seems like every day a new batch of race cancellations are announced. I'd like to ask you to do something. Please, please, please. Instead of sitting down and writing an angry email to the race director expressing your frustration with the closure and demanding a refund, instead, write a nice note to the race director. Tell him or her to keep the entry fee and use it for a good cause. And please, please, please know that these races depend on the goodness of this community for their survival. From the Beast Coast, Ages a Whizzle.
Thanks for that, Ages a Whizzle. I know these times are tough. Thanks for tuning in to episode 187 of Outhouse News. Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. And if you'd like to support the show, please join Steep Life Media on Patreon, where you'll enjoy bonus content each week right from me for as little as $2 per month. We want to mention by name our $50 level supporters, Squirrels Nut Butter, Brian Sands, Mark Grabowski, Renee Feint, and the Twisted Fork Ultra out of Park City, as well as our $25 level supporters, Bluebird Running Company, Sean Trujillo, Carrie Savage, Casey Carter, and Jeff Holbrook. And finally, if you'd like to own this week's pair of Jam Jam sunglasses, check out the link below. Have a shitty week.